Okay, Typology Tribe, you know what I'm about to say because I say the same thing every time I come on the show and I don't know what else to say except this. Welcome to the podcast on which we explore the mystery of the human personality and the human adventure and everything about you through the lens of the Enneagram. Anthony?
Ian Cron. Hey, listen, I want to ask you a question.
All right.
I know you have a brand new book that's dropping.
Yes.
You're starting on, of course, the podcast book tour.
Yes.
You've been on a few so far. What's your favorite conversation so far?
Well, as of last count, I have more than 40 podcasts that I'm going to be on in the next few weeks.
Wow.
And then more in January. And I'm doing a book tour, a multi-city book tour. And that's going to be a trip. That'll be in the winter after the book drops on January 28th. Of course, The Fix, How the 12 Steps Offer a Surprising Path of Transformation for the Well-Adjusted, the Down and Out, and everyone in between, is available for pre-order now on Amazon.
Woo, woo, woo.
Just setting that out there. But it drops officially on January 28th. And yes, I have done already, because it just really started in earnest this past week. So I've been on about 5 podcasts so far.
Yeah. But tell us maybe a conversation you're excited about that you had that people need to go listen to.
Oh, okay. Well,
because it's I want them to get a little more of a taste of what's coming down the pike with the book.
Yeah. I mean, I did an interesting podcast with our mutual friend, Aaron Nyquist.
Oh, okay.
Shauna's husband. And he's doing an 8 or 10 episode series leading up to the election. And the name of the series is Practices to Prevent a Civil War.
Wow.
It's actually pretty cool. I wasn't sure what it was going to be like, but I've known Aaron for a long time,
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. And so I went on and I talked about the 12 steps and what the whole culture could learn from working the steps. And I gave him a practice that's in the book to help integrate our inner world in such a way that we would be less likely to participate in a civil war. And
nice.
I don't know. It was really fun, actually.
Yeah.
And in fact, I never listened to podcasts, and I went back and listened to it because I had such a fun time on it. And so that's worth listening to.
Good. Well, we've got a great guest today.
We have a great guest today. We are going to actually outdo my friend Aaron Nyquist with this guest because she is a better guest than I was on his show, I'm sorry to say. Enneagram 2, author of the new book, The Enneagram for Teens, A Complete Guide to Self-Discovery and Spiritual Growth. Ainsley Britain, welcome to Typology.
Thank you so much for having me.
It is an honor. By the way, just so everyone knows, Ainsley's been making us laugh for the last 15 minutes.
We asked her to put some headphones in, and I think her buds are triggering a gag reflex.
It is. It's like, it's the strangest thing. I've never seen this reaction before.
I don't know how to talk. Like, I can't hear anything else. They're like noise canceling, and they just go right into your, what is that? Your ear canal. And it's all like, I don't know if I'm too loud. I don't know if I'm too soft.
You don't know if there's a car coming up behind you. You don't know anything.
My toddler could be bursting into this room at any moment. She has a sitter, don't worry, but you never know. I won't know. I won't hear her coming. That's for sure.
Well, we'll tell you if something scary happens behind you. So
Great.
Maybe not.
Yeah, or we might watch.
Could be more fun.
But if an evil clown starts to creep up on you, we're not going to say anything. We're going to see that play out.
Right.
Honestly, good for ratings. I'm here for it. I understand.
So Ainsley, I mean, like, you're a certified Enneagram coach, you're an author, and you're an Enneagram 2. What kind of 2 are you? Are you a self-pres, social, one-to-one?
I always struggle with that. I go back and forth between social and one-to-one all the time.
Right.
So you can decide by the end of our time together.
Okay. All right. We can do that.
But I don't, so I just go back and forth between that. But I do have a 3-wing, and my tri-type is 2, 7, 8.
Okay. Nice. Now listen, we don't talk about tri-types on this show. So tell people what they are, because it's just not a part of the Enneagram that I've chosen to do a lot of work with. So explain that.
Sure. Yeah, I don't talk about them a ton outside of whenever someone says, "Oh, I feel like I am all or, multiple types at one time." And then I think, "Okay, well, let's explore your tri-type because you do have a little bit of, one type in each triad in yourself." And it expands a little bit. I actually use your quote every single time whenever we talk about the Enneagram doesn't put you in a box. It shows you the box that you're already in and how to expand and grow from that. So anyway, there are the 3 triads, the centers of intelligence, the head, heart, and the gut. And you typically have your main type in one of those triads. And then that's what you use whenever you are just instinctively doing your thing or having some type of need to have resources, I guess, use your resources. And when the resources of your type don't work, when you deploy them for whatever reason, you move on to the next triad in a clockwork. What is that? What am I trying to say? Direction?
We're just going to let you keep trying. No. No, let her keep going. Just leave her.
You go in the normal clockwise thing. You go to the
circle with a finger and a clock.
What?
I am so pregnancy brained. It's so bad. Okay, then you go to the next one, and you typically have a number within that triad that you most identify with, and then you try those defense mechanisms. If those don't work, you move on to the next one, and so on and so forth. So you typically are drawn to one type in each triad. For me, my main type is a 2. And then the next number that I'm most drawn to is a 7. A lot of people mistake me as a 7. They think I'm a 7 as soon as they meet me. And I'm not. And then 8 is the next one because if all else fails, I'm just going to fight.
Okay. Well, it's interesting because you just gave me some, I'm not going to say what it is yet, but you just gave me some information that helped take the next step on maybe figuring out your subtype.
Oh, I'm so thankful.
So thankful. Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure. So, all right. So you're a 2. What do you love about being a 2 and what sucks about being a 2?
Oh my gosh. Well, I can tell you what sucks about it right off the bat. And
all right.
That's how I knew I was a 2. I think it's this crippling sense of responsibility anytime there's an ask anywhere from anyone. It's like I teach a group fitness class, but that means I'm in a group chat with all the other instructors, right? And if there is one time slot that someone can't do or someone needs a sub, they'll send out a message to our group and say, "Hey, can anyone cover this?" As a 2, my first instinct is, "Oh, she's directly asking me if I can cover it." That's not the case. She just asked a group of 30. But as a 2, I just instinctively "Oh, I have to do that for them. That is my responsibility," when it's absolutely not. So that is the worst part for sure, because I do that with everything. Everything is my responsibility, even if it's not directly asked of me. The best part is, I think one thing that I love about being a 2 is the desire to connect with people. I started a monthly hangout with my girlfriends called the Cozy Club, where you just come cozy. There's no expectations. You just come and hang out. And it's been such a great environment for us to connect. And we know that we have this designated time every month where we don't have to worry about, soccer games or whatever and working around our kids' schedules. We know this is the time. Our husbands do bedtime for all of our kids. And we get to just hang out. And that was something that I think as a 2 was very in my gifting lane.
Anthony and I have a group. It's called the Come Dozy Club. And it's usually, it's older guys.
Playing checkers. Telling dad jokes.
Yeah, telling dad jokes and falling asleep.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
My husband jokes and he calls his workout group the Brosy Club.
Oh!
There you go.
And they all wear their hats backwards, or they put their sunglasses on the brim of their baseball caps, right? That's pretty broy. Oh,
it
man. We could work this for hours.
Yeah.
We could.
We could do this for hours. All right. So on a more serious note, as you're doing inner work, what is the focus of your attention right now? Like, as you're doing inner work as an Enneagram 2, like what are you working on?
Oh my gosh. I feel like so many things, but the number one thing is parenting right now. I have a 2.5-year-old and one on the way. And I think it's giving my daughter, also sorry if you hear her in the background, that's just the reality of my life. But giving her the tools that she needs to, there's going to be wounding childhood messages that are going to come her way. And whether it be from me, hopefully not, but it might, teachers, outside forces, outside voices, what tools can I equip her with when those come to, I don't know, stay strong, to not let them permeate, to know what's real and what's not, what's truth and what's not. And so that is the biggest burden and the biggest inner work that I'm doing right now.
Okay, so what's so interesting is I asked you what inner work you were doing right now, and you focused on your you focused on your relationship with your child and what she needs or he needs, right? It's like, that's curious.
The most two thing to do. That's so it though. That is so it.
So that's a worthy goal. I'm not saying it's not a worthy goal and a good goal, but let me ask the question again. What work are you doing that is about your development into a more integrated and whole human being as a 2?
Okay. I think, let me see if I can word this right. You can correct me if my wording is off. I am learning to trust. Now, a lot of my work is faith-based. I'm a faith-based person. I am learning how to trust the Lord no matter the circumstance and not let my human trustworthiness be a reflection of his.
Ooh, explain that.
I think that I believe that I am a trustworthy person, and yet I've let people down. Naturally, we all do. That's normal human experience. And anyone that I have trusted in life has let me down once or twice. That's a very normal thing. And yet God is perfect. God is omniscient, omnipresent, all of these amazing things, and perfect. So how do I, in my limited human understanding of the world and of trust, actually fully trust him no matter what, despite the inability to fully trust one another, including myself, without inhibition? Does that make sense?
It does. It does.
I say that, and this is going to circle right back to a 2 thing, is my daughter was in the hospital recently, and my husband said, I have never prayed so hard in my life. And I said, wow, I have never prayed so little in that time. And I realized, I don't know if my trust in God is circumstantial or not. So that's where I'm at.
That's a really good inquiry, right? To work with that. And I think that's a every type struggle, because there is always a part of each of us that feels like, this time God's not showing up, maybe, and it's so it all comes to me. And then we default to self-reliance.
Yes.
And it also could be a 2 thing because oftentimes, 2s take on a burden of responsibility for others, while at the same time not disavowing and not acknowledging their own needs. So, sometimes they just forget, and each type has its own way of taking the helm of their own lives and trying to work out strategies for living that render God unnecessary.
Yes.
And, so each of us has to do that inquiry. It's a good one.
It's a hard one.
Yeah.
I really wanted to believe that I was this like fully trusting, steam ahead, no problem. And then I was faced with this thing. And I was like,
that's called the passion of pride. Separate issue. Okay. So,
pride is the worst part of being a 2. Oh my gosh. Every day I pray, Lord, please kill my pride. Please, but do it gently.
Yeah. Could you just maybe give it a couple of drinks?
Yeah. Make it part of the dozy club and
Make it
just
exactly.
knock it out a little bit.
Yeah, knock it out a little bit, but don't kill it.
But it doesn't have to be violent.
So it's so funny. I was in a 12-step meeting the other day, and somebody had challenged a friend of mine who's in the program to do some work. And he went, wait a minute, I want to be sober, but not that sober.
That's how I feel about pride.
I want to, I don't want, I want to be prideless, but not that prideless.
But not that prideless. Exactly. That is exactly it.
I get it for sure. All right. So here's something interesting. You've written an Enneagram book for teens.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know why you specifically chose that subset of the population to target the book at. And like, where did that impulse arise out of?
Yes, I love this question. I will tell you this. I've been working with young adults / teenagers since I was one. I literally felt that calling in my life whenever I was 15. And
I've been taking care of teenagers since I was one.
Since I was a teenager.
No, since I was one.
Since I was a teen.
A teenager.
A teenager. I literally felt this calling in my life whenever I was 15. And I was like, Lord, I can't work with teenagers. I am one. What are you talking about? But as soon as I graduated high school, I went and I had a mentor in the church, and she kind of just guided me through what it looks like to lead and all of those things. Anyway, all of that to say, I found that so many times teens were being dismissed of their feelings, of their life experiences, with the common phrases of, oh, you'll get over it. Oh, you'll date plenty of more people. It'll be fine. Oh, no big deal. But then as I grew and became an adult, I thought, man, a lot of those traumatic life events or wounding childhood messages came from my teen years. So these dismissive statements are so painful to young adults because we're dismissing these things and yet it's sticking with them, right? And some of the reasons that adults act the way that they do now is because of these things that they were hurt by as a young adult and never dealt with. So that has always been just pulling at my heartstrings. I've always taken the heart of teens very seriously and just heard them out, always been listening, like, okay, what is really going on in your life? Even if it's, even if your trauma is real versus perceived, it doesn't mean it hurts any less. And that's where I kind of sit in that tension with teenagers, because they may not be being told these blatant lines, but they still may be receiving them in a certain way. Mm-hmm. So that is how that passion became like, okay, if I'm going to use the Enneagram, this is one area I can probably use it in. And that came out of a situation that I was in whenever I was in college. I had just gone through a terrible breakup. It was an abusive relationship. And I actually wrote my first book, Don't Date a Boo-Boo Dude, out of that relationship. And it led me to a coffee table with one of my friends. We're crying into our lattes. And she's like, okay. And I'm thinking, why? I'm asking her, why would he do this? Why would I react like this? Why did these fights happen the way that they did? XYZ. She said, you're asking a lot of like, why behind the action? Do you know about the Enneagram? And I was like, no. And she sent me with a book home in 2013. And I have not stopped researching it and learning about it ever since 2013. And it gave me the closure that I never got in that relationship. And then it showed me who I am and made me feel a lot less alone and a lot more understood. And I finally understood what it meant when God says you are fearfully and wonderfully made. I finally felt that way. I was like, oh my gosh, you did this on purpose. Okay, now this makes sense about me. And from then on, I've never stopped being obsessed with it. I've never stopped learning about it. And I still have a long way to go. There's so many layers, but I love it. And that's how I all started there.
This episode of Typology is sponsored by BetterHelp.
Hey folks, I want to take a moment to thank Steve, my friend Steve, for his presence in my life. Let me explain to you why. Steve is my 12-step sponsor, and he has made a profound difference in my life over the years. I'm not sure if I could keep the wheels on the car were it not for sponsor Steve. November is all about gratitude. And along with Steve, there's another person we don't thank enough, and that's ourselves, Anthony.
That's a good point, Ian, and it's easy to lose sight of the positive things we contribute to our own lives.
Yeah, man, but an attitude of gratitude is critical for our mental health, and that's why I start my day every single day by listing 3 things I'm grateful for. Dude, it helps me keep a positive mindset as I move through the day.
Oh, that's so strong, man. So what if someone is struggling to find something to be grateful for? What do you do?
Ooh, well, that's where BetterHelp Online Therapy comes in, my friend. A good therapist can help you recognize and express those things you are grateful for. BetterHelp is designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Simply fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. So, let the gratitude flow with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/Typology Podcast today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Typology Podcast. Yeah, I love this. And recently my publicist was talking to me about her son, and he was at a school where there was a major conflict within his class that was really, really divisive, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so what happened is they had a retreat, right, to deal with it. And everyone took an Enneagram test. And at graduation, both the valedictorian and the salutatorian referenced how invaluable the Enneagram had been to turning their class around and creating momentum, which I was like, heck yeah. That happens at major corporations too. I mean, like
Certainly.
it has that capacity. That said, there's a lot of Enneagram teachers who get squirrely when people give Enneagram stuff to adolescents. What do you think? So obviously you think it's good. So tell me why you think it's good and what do you say to people who are like, oh no, you should really wait until you're at least in your 20s before you start messing around with the Enneagram because the human personality is fully there. All the nuts and bolts are in place at 16 or 15 or 14. But it's still wet cement.
Totally. And I agree, honestly, to a degree. So I am not, this book is very much a guide to the start line, right? So this is very much like, hey, this is all the information. It's a lot of information. So let's just start thinking through it now. Let's start viewing things through these lenses and take your time with it. Because the truth is that a test is not going to be 100% correct all the time. So even whenever your personality is concrete, you still have a journey to go on, to learn and to develop and make sure and, learn more about it. So let's just put the learning blocks in place now. And then whenever you feel like you're ready, go ahead and understand your type even deeper. But I will say my sister is 16. My youngest sister is 16. And we were at the beach this summer and her friend immediately were like, oh, I am this type. So I do think that there is, there are some teens who have had some pretty intense trauma that has informed their decisions already. So I'm not one to say you can or cannot do it and find your concrete type, but I'm here to say that this is really a guide to the starting line. This is a long journey. Let's take this into bite-sized pieces. Let's break this down and let's just have you become more self-aware in general. Because, oh my gosh, what would have happened if I was a self-aware teenager?
Yeah, right. So what's interesting is I really like that approach because, first of all, when you're an adolescent, right, your personality is, it's all there, but it's actually, there's a lot of testing going on. There's a lot of
Yes.
like trying on new personalities from time to time and just seeing what fits and things like that. And so when it's positioned as something like, let's just have a starting conversation
Yeah.
about this and, hold it lightly
Yep. Exactly.
and see if it remains true over time. And
Mm-hmm.
if your type remains true over time, then you can have a growing confidence that maybe you have typed yourself correctly. But again, I'm with you. I think like the sooner you can outfit humans with some ability to observe their inner world and head off some maladaptive ways of walking through the world, as quickly as possible. That's what good teaching does, right? Good teaching
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day saves people time. That's what it
Yes.
does, right?
Yes.
And you just described it earlier. Oh my gosh, if I had had more self-awareness as a teen, I would have saved me time
And mistakes.
and mistakes and being in long-term relationships with people I shouldn't have been. And like,
Exactly.
I'm not. So it's just about saving time. That's kind of
Yeah.
like a little bit of one of the things that I see my job being, like just saving people time. And that's great.
Yeah, I love it. And I've seen so much fruit in it. I've seen so much fruit in their self awareness. Now, obviously, with teens, it's extremely important that I talk about what Jeff and Beth McCord say and not to use it as a sword or a shield. We're not cutting anyone down with it, we're not hiding behind it. I think those are the two things that I'm like, more important than knowing your type, you need to know not to do these things, or these are the ground rules, right? But other than that, it's hold it loosely, but get this information in your hands. It's so helpful, especially for the parent teen dynamic. There's so much misunderstanding there. There is from both sides. I constantly hear they don't get it. They're not hearing me. They don't understand. Well, imagine going through this, thing of self-discovery, this journey of self-discovery together, and then having those conversations. Incredible. Build bridging. Build bridging? No. Bridge building. They just can't stay too serious for too long. Building the bridge.
We can wait.
Communication. No, truly. Oh my gosh. I'm telling you, growing a human does something to the brain. It actually does scientifically, but it does build the bridge of communication between parent and teen. And I've seen it happen. So I'm like, yes, let's get this tool in as many teenagers' hands as possible.
Okay. So I have 3 kids and they were introduced to the Enneagram when they were teenagers. One of them was all in, and that one is an 8. Was like, oh yeah, as often happens with aggressive types. And then another one was like, yeah, I like it. It's interesting. And one was, I hate this. I don't want to talk about this. This is miserable. And I just don't like it. I don't like this is my youngest. He just hated it when people brought up his number, and he clearly is a 7 on the Enneagram. And he's like,
Interesting.
I think it was because he felt it put limitations on him.
Too deep.
And 7s don't like limitations. Like, don't tell me I do these things and that I should do this or that. It's like, it felt like he was being controlled. And it's interesting that 7s are like that. They get defensive, like almost like, I don't want you to close down escape hatches for me. Like if I want to be somebody different and blah, blah, blah. And now he's grown to appreciate it more. But it's interesting. We talk about the Enneagram as a family from time to time, but it's not something we talk about all the time, right? It's like only when it makes sense. Like people ask me all the time, well, gee, you do so much work with the Enneagram. Don't you guys just talk about it and think about it all the time? I'm like, heck no. It's like, we're just living life together. We're not talking about the Enneagram as like being the sole definition of what it means to be me, whatever. Anyway,
Sure.
So when a person comes to you though and says, because I've had this question a ton of times, I have a teenager and I'm really into the Enneagram. My husband or my wife is really into the Enneagram. I really want them to be into the Enneagram. How do I get them into the Enneagram and know their type, blah, 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 blah. What do you say to that parent?
Well, the short answer is don't force it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not worth it. It's not worth because the thing is that a lot of times they'll grow into the interest. And if they don't, then just find other ways to connect with them. And you can still ask them questions surrounding the Enneagram, but it be more for your awareness, I guess, than this pointed conversation around this word that they may have coil back to the word, the Enneagram. Mm-hmm. My dad is a 7, very much like in and out with the conversation. It has to be very fast. It has to be very like, we can't go too deep, right? But his girlfriend wants to go deep and hard into the Enneagram. So I kind of ride that boundary a lot, where I'm like, okay, whenever she and I are by ourselves, we're going to go deep. We're going to get into it. When he's around, we're barely going to mention it, but we're not going to limit ourselves to the conversation we want to have. But it's one of those things where if they aren't into it, they're just not into it. Mm-hmm. And like most things, don't force a teenager to do something. They're just going to hate it more and resent you more and not want to talk to you even more.
Right.
And there's a time and a place for it. And if it's not their time or place, then I just wouldn't force it, honestly.
Folks, I got news for you. Everyone is an addict. Whether it's people-pleasing, endlessly scrolling through TikTok, workaholism, unhealthy relationships, or drug and alcohol abuse, all of us as human beings look for the next fix to help numb and endure the constant emotional, psychological, and spiritual distress that all of us feel because we live in a broken world. The problem is that using external solutions for internal problems is like going to the hardware store to buy bread. It never works. That's why I wrote The Fix, how the 12 steps offer a surprising path of transformation for the well-adjusted, the down and out, and everyone in between. The 12 steps of recovery are a spiritual design for living that can profoundly change the lives, not just of people with identified addictions like drug and alcohol abuse, but of everyone. And that means you. Both The Fix and the companion workbook are now available for pre-order anywhere books are sold, such as Audible, Barnes & Noble, Target, Books A Million, and Amazon. Just visit ianmorgancron.com/thefix to secure your copy today. And as a thank you for your pre-order, I'll send you a sneak peek of Chapter 1. Yup, the whole first chapter. Not only will you learn how you, and everyone you know, can benefit from the 12 steps, but you'll read some raw, honest stories from my own recovery journey, and you'll get a few practical pieces of advice from someone who's been there before the rest of the book drops in January. Simply pre-order The Fix anywhere books are sold. Then visit ianmorgancron.com/get-your-download to get started on Chapter 1 now. Yeah, and here's another thing that people have to be careful of, right? The temptation, the overwhelming temptation is, okay, my kid doesn't really want to do anything with the Enneagram, but I know he's a 6, or I know he's a 7 or a 4 or a 2.
I hear that all the time. Yeah.
Right? And what do you say?
Mm-hmm. I just say, I don't think it matters that much. Honestly, like, why does it matter so much that you find out their specific type? I understand that it informs a lot of decisions and how you could approach certain conversations, but more than anything, if you wanted to get to know them, just ask them questions about things that they're interested in, because of your exact quote, we are more than our numbers. We are not in this box. So I don't think that we are just our Enneagram types. And so I just think I tell parents to just be a little bit more curious than their type.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's good advice, right? Like, I think one of the greatest ways that we express love to other human beings is through curiosity. It's about asking interesting questions and trying to understand more how they see and experience the world, to explore the beliefs they have about themselves and about the world. Just actually keeping a journal of good questions is like really great. Like, as they come up, and you hear them, you're like, oh, that's a good question. I'm going to write that down because I'm going to use it with my kids.
Yeah, that's a good. Oh, I like that.
Another way to do it is we have regularly when all my family's together, my wife insists. My wife hates it when we're all together as a family, and there's 7 of us. She hates it when there are 5 conversations going on at the dinner table at the same time. So
Okay.
she always, because everyone's just talking to the person next to them, and it's just noise, and they're usually not talking about anything very deep because it's just chaos. And she's always like, we have to begin every meal with what she calls a collecting question, which is collecting everybody together and we answer a question. So she might ask a question like, what was the hardest and the best thing that's happened to you in the past 12 months? And it's amazing what has come out. And if you can get your kids to begin to share at that level as a group, it's pretty powerful.
Yeah, and I like that because it gives them the opportunity to expand in any direction, in whatever their main focus is, whatever they want to talk about at that time, whatever area of interest is currently at its highest in their lives. And then that gives you a jumping off point for 5 million questions, down the line if you pay attention to the things that they're really interested in at that moment instead of, oh, I need to gather this information for my angle to try and love them a certain way instead of listening. Because if you listen and if you ask the right questions targeted towards what's going on in their lives, like you're talking about, they'll talk. Mm-hmm. They will talk. Mm-hmm. Like they will share. It's just a matter of, I don't know if it's a level of control because it's a kind desire. Like it's a desire of connection.
Sometimes
it's true.
And sometimes it is a desire to control.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, sometimes parents are like, I just want to cut stuff off at the pass and, know what to do. And it's like, good luck with that. Like it's not going to happen. It's just the whole parenting thing is just a mess. It's messy, 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 messy. So one last question I have for you is I think in many ways, this generation of teenagers has more mental health problems than any generation I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm. And awareness at the same time.
And awareness of it at the same time. Now, the good news is a lot of them are willing to talk about mental health in a very open way, which didn't happen when I was a kid. But how does the Enneagram present an opportunity to us in that regard?
Oh, I love that question. I do think, and this is very true of me, but I do think that it is so much inner work that it will always benefit the outer work, right? The people outside of ourselves. But we have to be willing to go there and to be vulnerable with one another face to face and not just behind the screens. I am definitely in the belief system that social media there is evidence that social media has harmed mental health, especially in teenagers. So I think that it engages conversation. And if we can have those conversations face to face, we can invite vulnerability in a way that we can better understand one another and have helpful conversations around the idea of how are you doing? How am I doing? But I think the more we get in our own heads about it, the more we're so self-consumed, the darker it gets. Mm-hmm. So if we don't take it outside of ourselves, if we just keep it all kind of bottled up, I'm just not sure if we're getting the full benefit of the Enneagram and the spectrum of what it can lend to us. I use it in my marriage. I use it in my friendships. I take it to corporate offices all the time. That's my favorite place to see it used. And what it does and what I have found, it grows empathy and understanding between two people. But we have to be willing to let it do that. And I think that will help. I think that will allow it to help increase healthy conversations, increasing the actual connection, increasing mental health, decreasing stigma, decreasing this false persona that people put on and decreasing comparison. Honestly.
Yeah, one of my favorite mantras is compare and despair. That's the natural outcome. Compare and despair.
Absolutely.
Never, and of course that's a problem for adults, but it's particularly true with adolescents.
It's all they have right now, right? They're in this sounding board of just other people, of peers, of things that they're consuming. And if they can't take a step out of it and see the value of human to human, person to person, empathy and understanding, that's where I think it gets too heady, and that's where we see them suffer. And ourselves if we don't have those boundaries in place.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, everybody, we've been talking to Ainsley Britain, author of the new book, The Enneagram for Teens, a complete guide to self-discovery and spiritual growth. Ainsley, how do people learn more about you?
They can hang out with me online, as we just talked about getting offline. Unless you're in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, then I'd love to meet you in person. I am at Ainsley B on Instagram, AinsleyBritain.com, or Enneagram with AinsleyB.com.
Nice.
That's my website.
Man, it's been a delight having you on the show, and man, all the best on this new book. And as I hear a baby screaming in the background,
I know, I'm so sorry.
It's dinner time. It's dinner time.
Did you come up with my not self-preservation, social versus one-on-one?
You know what? I didn't really like I wasn't paying enough attention. My suspicion is you're a social two. So the reason I say that, I'm looking at my little handy dandy notes on types, right? So like you're someone, it seems to me that you're pretty ambitious. Like you want to do stuff.
Certainly.
I suspect that public image is important to you.
Mm-hmm.
Social twos often like try to get approval and appreciation for being, upbeat and competent and being kind of entertaining, which you strike me as. But I don't know that for sure. Like that's based on a really short conversation.
Of course.
And that we would have to talk a lot more. But you feel social too to me.
I think that's probably accurate. There's only like one or two attributes of the one-to-one that I'm like, oh man, I'm so drawn there. But I can't even think of it right now that I'm trying to think of it because that would just be too perfect. So I'm going to dive a little bit deeper. But I do think social. I would much rather hang out with a group and like everyone engaged than be trapped in a one-on-one forever conversation. So
like one-on-one twos are really focused on intimate relationships, like really focused on it. Mm-hmm. And they're looking for romantic union or intensity in a relationship, and they want to be desired. And if they're not desired, they really start to struggle. And there's a kind of vacillation between kind of this sort of seductive magnetism. Yeah. And then aggressively helping other people. So it's kind of like this flip-floppy thing. I see. That's, yeah. I among help other people things. Aggressively. Yeah. But that, as a social two, that you would also want to do that. But the thing is that social twos are like pretty ambitious people. Like they want to get stuff done. They love to be an expert on a topic. They love to present it to other people. They can be jealous of other people that compete with them in their zone. Not hostile, but a little threatened by other people want to do the same thing they're doing. They want to stand out in the group. They want to be valuable to the herd. All that stuff. And anyway, you don't have the sort of, what I didn't pick up in this conversation is like sometimes, like, not that you would be with me, but like sometimes one-on-one twos, they have a kind of a seductive charm and magnetism, whereas the social two is a little bit more ebullient and effusive and lots of emotions, and it's big and the personality is big, which is a little bit maybe why the seventh thing comes up for you. Like it's That's like true. They're like super cheerful and super big and like laughing and doing all this stuff. It's like And that feels a little bit more like you, but that's just
Yeah, I
my
want you to
initial-
think I'm funny really bad.
Yeah. Well, I do. So mission accomplished.
Thank you. That's one, I think, angle I try to bring to my Enneagram coaching. I'm like, if you bring me to your office, if nothing else, we will laugh.
Right. There you go. All right. Well, that's a good, you should put that on your business card. Hey, everybody. This is Ainsley Britain, author of The Enneagram for Teens, A Complete Guide to Self-Discovery and Spiritual Growth. Ainsley, thanks for being with us.
Thank you so much. It's been so fun.
Anthony, thanks for being with us.
So good to be with y'all.
And thanks for all of you for being with us. May you have love. May you have joy. May you have peace. May you have healing. May you have every good thing. May you have rest. And may you have all the laughter that Ainsley has and has brought to the show today. And we'll see you next time.